next is the Coronavirus Weekly Report. It's 12 o'clock. We've hit a grim milestone. Over 1 million people have tested positive for COVID-19. More than 50,000 have died. This is Coronavirus, a weekly report from NPR News. I'm Lulu Garcia Navarro. The U.S., of course, has not been immune. We've been told to brace for up to 240,000 deaths, even if we continue to follow social distancing rules. And while some Americans stay home through the end of April, authorities work to ramp up testing, search for new treatments, and refine safety guidelines. According to experts, one thing is clear. Our health system just wasn't prepared for this.
I don't think anybody would disagree that for decades, our nation's underinvested in public health.
This hour, we'll have the latest developments in the fight against the virus, a look at its impact on our economy, and tips for how to weather this pandemic at home. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Barbara Klein. President Trump is firing the top watchdog for the intelligence community. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports Michael Atkinson was a key figure in the president's impeachment.
Trump alerted leaders of congressional intelligence committees of the plans in a one-page letter. The president said he must have the fullest confidence in the intelligence community's inspector general, but that was no longer the case. Atkinson first raised concerns of a whistleblower complaint that the president was withholding military aid from Ukraine, as Trump also sought an investigation into his political rival Joe Biden. The effort led to the House inquiry that resulted in the impeachment of the president last year. Earlier this year, a majority of senators voted against Trump's removal from the presidency in an impeachment trial. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, Washington.
Princess Cruises says its Coral Princess cruise ship is docking in Port Miami after being turned away from Port Everglades because of an outbreak of COVID-19 on board. Broward County Sheriff Gregory Toney says his deputies will help transfer passengers.
It's been imperative for all the personnel that's been participating in this to self-guard themselves, wear their personal protection equipment, make sure that they were complying with all the CDC protocols.
The cruise company says some passengers and crew have tested positive for the coronavirus and 2 have reportedly died. The Princess Cruises has not confirmed the deaths. The Labor Department's jobless claims this week are evidence of the economic devastation brought by the coronavirus and efforts to mitigate it. Steve Beckner reports they're only part of the picture.
The first nationwide report for March showed non-farm payrolls plunging by 701,000, with unemployment jumping 0.9% to 4.4%. Corporate purchasing managers report sharp weakening of activity. Bad as those findings were, they don't fully reflect the cost of fighting the virus. The Labor Department's job surveys were conducted in early March prior to many forced business closures. White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow acknowledges a very deep contraction, but how deep is unknown. Barclays economists think a 35% drop in GDP will push unemployment toward 14% in the second quarter. Some fear it could go much higher. For NPR News, I'm Steve Beckner.
3M warns the Trump administration's move to block it from exporting N95 masks could result in retaliation by other countries and have humanitarian ramifications. 3M is a major producer and exporter of face masks for healthcare workers. President Trump has suggested 3M and other countries are profiteering. This is NPR. At his daily briefing today, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says when the coronavirus pandemic ends, he wants to know why he and others are having to look to China to shop for crucial medical equipment, including masks and ventilators. As of today, all flights in and out of Russia are halted, the Kremlin's effort to keep out new coronavirus infections. NPR's Charles Maines reports from Moscow.
Russia's national carrier Aeroflot was set to take off from Moscow to New York on Friday, and suddenly the flight was canceled due to the impending travel ban. The move outraged American passengers trying to get home, as well as Russians back in New York who were planning to return to Moscow Saturday. Airspace closure also put a sudden stop to repatriation efforts by Russia's foreign ministry, which had been working to return some 25,000 Russians it says are stranded around the globe amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The Kremlin says it will provide some funds to help Russians now stuck. A spokeswoman for the U.S. Embassy in Moscow says it's trying to negotiate a final one-time charter flight to ferry the Americans back to the U.S. sometime next week. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
President Trump is scheduled to hold a conference call this hour with major sports league commissioners, including the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. Sports are at a halt because of the coronavirus. The leaders are expected to look at the future impact of the pandemic. I'm Barbara Klein, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from TIAA, committed to the idea that while most things in life run out, from clean shirts in the morning to a favorite dessert at night, lifetime income in retirement shouldn't. Learn more at TIAA.org/neverrunout.
Special programming is made possible by your contributions, along with Evergreen Home Performance, offering energy-efficient windows and insulation to help homeowners achieve year-round comfort. More at evergreenyourhome.com.
Garcia Navarro, and you're listening to Coronavirus, a weekly report from NPR News. This hour will look at the latest medical and scientific developments, hear from some of the people most affected by this pandemic, and we've got advice for how to make it through financially. We'll start with the latest guidance from the White House. 1 more month. That's at least how long Americans are being asked to stay home. While President Trump has been holding regular press briefings, we haven't heard as much from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the country's leading public health agency. But Dr. Robert Redfield, the CDC director, recently spoke with Sam Whitehead of member station WABE in Atlanta. My colleague Elsa Chang asked him if there was any daylight between what Redfield and the president have been saying.
Redfield essentially admitted the country wasn't ready for this pandemic. Now, it's unclear if any country was totally prepared, but he did say the United States wasn't ready, and here's some tape of that.
I don't think anybody would disagree that for decades, collectively, our nation's underinvested in public health. Now, I think people understand that that can really have significant consequences. And now is the time for us to overinvest, over-prepare in public health. This virus is going to be with us.
And that's a significant admission. It's not what we've been hearing, say, from President Trump. He said we've had the best healthcare system. We have the best healthcare system in the world. But that's not really what we're talking about here. This isn't about treatments like knee replacements. We're talking about public health. And that means stopping infections and making the whole country healthier, preventing and containing outbreaks just like this one. That said, Redfield did talk about the money coming from Congress now to help ramp up testing and tracking infections and contacting people, but he wouldn't say when all that testing data might be compiled in one place nationally to paint a picture of what's going on.
Did he say anything new that the CDC has learned about not only the coronavirus, but just how it's transmitted?
Well, he focused on the fact that lots of people who get infected with the coronavirus will not have symptoms. He said that could be up to 25% of people. That's 1 in 4. And for the other 75% of people who do have symptoms, those folks could be shedding significant amounts of virus, say from their nose or mouth or throat, probably for up to 48 hours before symptoms appear. He also said the coronavirus seems to be quite a bit more contagious than the flu, which was something we hadn't heard yet.
Okay, so what was Dr. Redfield's overall message to the public then?
Well, that message is still revolving. On one hand, he says people should take the CDC's recommendations for social distancing seriously. He says it's the best tool we have right now, and here he is with that.
This is not just a little recommendation on a piece of paper. This is a very powerful weapon.
On the other hand, though, when Redfield discussed what comes next, he got a little bit more speculative. He said there might be some parts of the country that could open themselves up once we have a clear picture of how this virus is spreading. In his words, that could be in 4, 6, or 8 weeks. But other researchers say even at that point in the U.S., some 95% of the country will not have been exposed to the virus. So reopening even some parts of the country at that time could be really risky.
That was Sam Whitehead of WABE talking with NPR's Elsa Chang. Meanwhile, health experts in the U.S. are taking a closer look at whether wearing face masks in public helps stop the spread of the coronavirus.